Pred nama je prvi panel pod nazivom Brave New World, svijet i Europa u 2023. godini. Kako će izgledati taj vrli novi svijet, u ovoj godini ćemo čuti od učesnika našeg prvog panela. Pozivam njihove ekscelencije, ambasadore Švedske, Ujedinjenog kraljevstva, Njemačke i Francuske, njenu ekscelenciju Johannu Stromquist, njenu ekscelenciju Toudic, gospodina i njegovu ekscelenciju Juliana Reillyja i njegovu ekscelenciju Thomasa Fitschena. Please welcome and join me on the stage, if you can. I will be sitting here, and then please follow just the small marks. This part of the conference will be in English, so if anybody needs, you can have the headset. Also, Her Excellency French Ambassador, she will be speaking in French, and there will also be a translator for everything that will be said there. Ako trebate išta, tu imamo dečke iz tehnike, to je okay. Is it working? He's coming, yeah? It's okay? Okay. I hope everything is calm now. The people who wanted to leave, they left. We can have a conversation now. Welcome everybody to the panel and welcome to the conference. And I really hope that we all that we discuss some things today, and maybe in the exchange of ideas there will be something fruitful for all of us. I will start with Mr. Reilly, Ambassador of Great Britain, especially because you're the new ambassador as well, and I just learned that you speak our language as well, which would have been easier because I wouldn't have to speak English if I had known, but that's okay. Something, obviously a joke. What I was
that's a good thing, because so is my language.
Something I noticed both in your speech, but also in the article you wrote, was the unlocking potentials of Bosnia and Herzegovina, as you call them. You claimed that Bosnia and Herzegovina could develop into a regional production center especially if it would build on its existing manufacturing industries, varying from textile, wood, and other materials. As idealistic as this sounds and great as it sounds, I'm hoping that you could maybe provide us with ways on how to do that, and what this country and its policymakers and stakeholders could focus on, and perhaps what could the United Kingdom do for that?
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I think the first thing to say is that while we, foreign investors, foreign countries, etc., can help, actually the real answers lie here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and the answers were there in the past as well. I mean, I talked about metal production, leather, wood processing, etc., not because we just made up those nice thoughts, but actually because they were really well-developed industries in the past. Wood production, for instance, still continues to grow. I mean, there's a huge amount of opportunity, and the manufacturing base should be part of that growth. So, but when I was speaking earlier, I also talked about sort of unlocking potential, and there are obstacles to that. It will remain a pipe dream unless there is an environment which is free from political capture. It needs to be free from corruption. It needs to be easier to come and invest, actually. And you asked, what will the UK be doing to contribute to that? I, as a representative of my government, cannot promise you lots of private sector investment. I can encourage, with my good trade colleagues over here, that there should, and explain what is available, but actually I can also then work with other colleagues here and with the governments here to actually build on the reforms so that we actually begin to see more equal opportunities, more better rule of law. I mean, one thing that I'll say is I was quite struck during the election campaign how little conversation there was about the economy and about the kitchen table issues. That needs to change, and you know, there are leaders in the new government who are talking more about these issues, which is hugely encouraging. Which is why I remain an optimist there. But I also, and the last thing I'll say before sort of opening it up is refer back to some of those structural issues in the economy which we've seen. I'd really love to know which issues the governments, and I use the plural, are going to tackle first, so that we, the international community, can get behind supporting that programme. But I think that if we do see that, then we can see a huge amount more foreign direct investment coming into this country, and that the UK would very much like to be part of that. And that is also why, as I mentioned earlier, we've put a good allocation of UK export finance available to support programmes which don't have to be 100% British, they actually have to be 20% British, which actually means that we can work with local and international partners to support developing the infrastructure, the energy transition, etc., that this country needs, so that those manufacturing bases have a chance to really build up to where they should be.
Thank you. Ambassador Stromquist from Sweden, welcome back. Nice to see you again this year. Beginning of this month and year, Sweden has taken over the presidency of the European Council. Congratulations on that. Bosnia and Herzegovina, as we heard also today, but also as we know, received its EU candidacy status recently. What is on Sweden's agenda regarding Bosnia and Herzegovina, especially in the next 6 months?
Thank you. It's good to be back. Yes, we assumed the presidency of the European Council 1st of January, and I would say related to the Western Balkans and Bosnia and Herzegovina, it was very clear at the EU Western Balkans Summit in Tirana in December that there was a strong message that the countries in this region belong in the European Union, and there was a very firm commitment to welcoming them into the EU family. And the Swedish presidency will continue to work together with the countries in the region on actually making this happen. We will continue to keep the EU together to make sure there's an active process, but of course the work has to be done by the governments in the region. It has to be done by the countries, and the focus from the European Union will continue to be on implementing what is actually needed to become a member, with focus on rule of law and the fundamental issues that the EU is founded on. So I think the candidate status of Bosnia and Herzegovina is really an opportunity, a chance in this regard. It's a very strong message from the European Union that we want to work together, we want to work closely together, and as we've heard others saying this morning, now is the time to really start working. We have governments in place at almost all levels, hopefully soon at all levels, but this is really the time to work and focus on implementing the 14 key priorities for Bosnia and Herzegovina, to make sure to be able to also start accession negotiations. So I would say this is the agenda of Sweden, but we also have 4 priorities for the EU. We want to push the agenda forward in very difficult circumstances, as others have also mentioned this morning. These are special times globally, but of course also very hard times in Europe, which means that a lot of the priorities are not really set by us, they are set by the circumstances. But we want to work on these 4 priorities: security, green and energy transition, competitiveness, and rule of law and democracy. And of course, all these very much relate also to the Western Balkans. These are all areas where we want to have a close cooperation, where we have a support from the European Union. So this will also be part of our agenda. We will continue to invite representatives from governments in the Western Balkans, including Bosnia and Herzegovina, to meetings in Brussels when it's appropriate. But I also have to mention in this context that, of course, what will overshadow and define these 6 months, our presidency, is the war in Ukraine and our continued support to Bosnia and Herzegovina. And in that context, there will also be some expectations on Bosnia and Herzegovina, just like the other countries in the region who are candidate countries, some of them negotiating to align with the EU Common Security Policy, because these are times when like-minded countries really have to work together, countries that believe in a rules-based world order. So these will be the priorities and the focus, to work together, because we are much stronger when we work together and work towards a common goal.
Thank you. Ambassador Toudic, over a year ago, at the same panel, we spoke about France's then already announced further development of nuclear energy. And a year later, we can see that France was very much, acting ahead. And this is something that other countries are now talking about, and that they've been talking about in the last year. So, especially because of the need for the energy independency from Russia, for the need for green deals, for the need for other forms of energy. How far along are the French nuclear energy plans at this moment?
Alors, je suis ravie d'être ici de nouveau, merci. Alors effectivement, je vais poursuivre mon exposé de l'année dernière sur l'énergie nucléaire. Oui, je sais que c'est un sujet un peu polémique, mais bon, il n'en demeure pas moins que l'énergie nucléaire émet 400 fois moins de gaz à effet de serre que le charbon. Donc voilà, une fois qu'on a dit ça, on prend sa décision. Alors effectivement, nous avons poursuivi nos plans pour développer les centrales nucléaires en France. Un projet de loi est actuellement à l'examen au Sénat, donc la deuxième chambre française, pour l'accélération des procédures liées à la construction de nouvelles installations nucléaires à proximité des sites déjà existants, j'insiste sur ce point, et au fonctionnement des installations déjà existantes. Actuellement, dans le mix énergétique français, en production d'électricité, le nucléaire représente 67% de la production. Nous avons 18 centrales et 56 réacteurs en état de marche à l'heure actuelle. Encore un certain nombre sont en maintenance parce que ces installations font évidemment l'objet d'une surveillance renforcée, comme chacun peut imaginer pourquoi. Donc, malgré tout, il n'y a pas que l'électricité et notre pays, évidemment, doit réduire sa dépendance aux énergies fossiles. Donc ce projet de loi va accélérer les procédures de construction des réacteurs EPR2 qui, je le rappelle, sont quand même des réacteurs beaucoup moins dangereux, beaucoup plus faciles à gérer et surtout beaucoup plus productifs. Donc pour réduire les délais de construction, le projet de loi simplifie de manière temporaire aussi, j'insiste, et cibler les procédures administratives, ce qui fait que ces constructions pourront intervenir plus vite. Et évidemment, ce cadre d'accélération ne concerne que les projets de réacteurs nucléaires qui produisent de l'électricité et rien d'autre. Et aussi, évidemment, prolonger les installations nucléaires en service. Mais vous avez parlé du nucléaire, mais il n'y a non plus pas que ça, parce que nous n'œuvrons pas que sur le nucléaire. Enfin, notre gouvernement ne se lance pas seulement sur le nucléaire, mais aussi sur des zones industrielles bas carbone. De nombreux parcs sont en cours de planification et donc il faut que ces parcs à bas carbone utilisent de nouvelles solutions technologiques également au-delà du nucléaire, donc l'hydrogène, la capture de carbone, la chaleur renouvelable, l'électricité bas carbone. Nous avons déjà quelques sites en France, et 120 millions d'euros seront consacrés au développement de 2 sites particuliers sur l'ancien site d'ArcelorMittal de sinistre mémoire. Et ensuite, nous avons aussi lancé, alors c'est plus petit, mais c'est comme une sorte de laboratoire, hein, une centrale ombrière photovoltaïque au parc d'attractions de Disneyland, Paris, à Marne-la-Vallée. C'est-à-dire que cette entreprise se dirige vers la production d'énergie renouvelable pour diminuer ses émissions de gaz à effet de serre et décarboner son approvisionnement énergétique. Et cette centrale illustre l'action du gouvernement pour atteindre le cap des 40% d'électricité d'origine renouvelable en France d'ici 2030. Donc effectivement, il y a le nucléaire, mais il y a aussi de nombreuses pistes exploratoires sur d'autres énergies renouvelables, qui fait que nous voulons vraiment respecter les engagements que nous avons pris dans le cadre de toutes les COP, de réduire nos émissions de gaz à effet de serre dans tous les domaines et avec toutes sortes de mix énergétiques, sans le gaz, sans le charbon et sans le reste.
Merci. Thank you very much. Speaking of energy, because I mean this is obviously a common issue, and there have obviously on a European and not necessarily just the European Union, but on a global level, been changes in plans for energy. So this brings me to you, to the ambassador of Germany. When we speak about, for example, Nord Stream 1, and then following on this topic of energy, it's working at 20% capacity. And obviously in the last year, we've seen many changes, not just in Germany, but maybe especially in Germany because of the specific geopolitical, economic, and energy position it's in. What are the alternatives for Germany when it comes to energy supplies? Is it green energy? Speaking of solar or wind energy, even though it's limited, are the German plans somewhere more along the lines of what France is doing, as we just heard from Ambassador Toudic? What could you tell us, Mr. Fitschen?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And of course, you are raising a very important issue indeed. First of all, I'm afraid I have to correct you a little bit. Nord Stream 1 is down to 0 since end of August, and it has also been blown up, so there is no gas coming from Russia via the Nord Stream pipelines right now. But of course, there is an energy crisis that is due to the war of Russia against Ukraine. But I think in the past 11 months, Germany and also countries around Europe and many others around have delivered proof that it is possible to, on the one hand, fulfill priority number one, namely getting out of Russian energy supplies, and also to tap into new sources, both in terms of countries that are now delivering, for example, gas, but also trying to literally energize and to speed up programs to develop new sources of renewable energy. So Germany, I think, was quite successful. One also shouldn't underestimate the possibility of saving energy. So in the past couple of months, German consumers and companies were able to bring down their own energy consumption by 9 to 10%, which is quite an impressive amount. German gas tanks are filled up sufficiently, so I think we can survive the winter and the coming months together with our European partners. But of course, while we discuss this issue, let me take our discussion also to the new world in 2023. There's one thing that, while working frantically on saving our current energy situation in the against the backdrop of the war, one thing that we must not commit, that the world must not commit, must not forget, namely that's our commitment to fight climate change. There's a tendency now to look very much at short-term issues and to do whatever is necessary to keep energy going. But of course, the climate change crisis is not waiting for the Ukraine war to be over. We had the COP26 in Glasgow, we had COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh. So there is a lot of work still to be done. And politically, I would say we must not put this on the back burner, if you allow me that wrong metaphor. It shouldn't be burning at all. But we have to still keep working on that. It's enormously costly, I know all this. But any country in the world, and that includes, of course, Bosnia and Herzegovina, should look for its potential to move into renewable energies. In this country, the opportunities and the capacity, for example, for wind energy, for producing wind energy, are brilliant. So that's really something where this country could and should invest more and really become an exporter of clean and renewable energy. So that's where we should also be looking at, not just at the current situation that is very much under the spell of the Russian war.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Reilly, can we go back to the region now? How does the post-Brexit UK, the one divided from the European Union and its policy, see its contribution to peace building and stability in the region, in the Western Balkans? And I've specifically asked this question because of the appointment of Sir Stuart Peach as a special envoy for the region.
Thank you very much. The first thing is the United Kingdom and our policy in the region remains as committed and as consistent as before, and regardless of our own position with regard to the European Union and our other Western partners remain really close partners as we work together to support the building and strengthening of the whole of the Western Balkans region so that it can continue its Euro-Atlantic path, which means both towards the European Union and towards NATO, certainly in the case of BIH, since that is what is the focus. I think the next thing to say is that there is a huge amount of political focus and attention and determination to support the Western Balkans, including this country, in the United Kingdom. And you just have to look over the last year and a half of, if one cares to do such things, of reading the debates and looking at the debates and the questions in our own parliament, in both the House of Commons and in the House of Lords. They're really strong advocates for...
Even if I can just add special sessions that were committed exactly to this topic. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So definitely.
So it's really there. And I think the appointment of Lord Peach, as he now is,
Excuse me,
earlier
please.
this year. It's all right. We complicated system in the UK. People keep changing their names. But anyway, with the appointment of Lord Peach, in recognition of the great work that he's done sort of in his military career and subsequently now as the Prime Minister's special envoy for the Western Balkans, I think, first of all, that appointment in itself shows the level of commitment that the United Kingdom at the highest level has, but also for us it's a fantastic opportunity to maintain constant, very senior attention, working with the region, with leaders across the region, and he was last here in, was it December? It was very recently. End of November, beginning of December, here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and he's been around the region recently and works very closely. He was last month, I think, in Montenegro with his German colleague and partner on a joint visit and working closely with EU and US envoys as well. So there's that focus, but and what are we focusing on? I mean, feel free to come back and focus on a few issues, but I think economic security is hugely important. So actually this conference here, where we're looking at the economy, is really important, but it's entirely integrated with the questions of security and stability, which have been at the heart of what we're doing. And the answer, in my view, and in my government's view, lies not in some kind of sort of massive building up and in security strength. Actually, it's about supporting Bosnia and Herzegovina, as we're here, to build the inclusive economic opportunities, which mean that young and talented people choose to stay, and to build an economy where they can grow families and where everybody has equal opportunities, where regardless of ethnicity or where across the country, which entity one lives in, everybody can actually work together and come together. So we're focused on that. And in support of that, again, working with partners, because I think the UK's approach is very much as a collaborative member of the international community, working to support the leadership and agency of the domestic leadership, is, we're working across such a wide range of issues, whether you're talking about tackling cyber or supporting socio-economic reform. Serious organised crime needs tackling. There's a lot of work that many people are doing there in support of local action, judicial reform, etc. And on the security side, that does remain important, which is why the UK is a really strong supporter of the Ministry of Defence and the armed forces of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I was, and showing the kind of regional approach last autumn. The first Fusiliers, who are one of our regiments, were on a deployment in KFOR in Kosovo, at the end of which they had the opportunity, which we were delighted to be able to do, to come do joint training with the armed forces of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and had an amazingly productive week with Upper Manjača with the armed forces there. So I think, in short, there's a huge amount that the UK continues to do in the Western Balkans. I don't think our status outside the European Union should trouble the region or the country. And I sit here on a panel with three very close colleagues who happen also to be in the European Union.
Honestly, the remark I made about it is, in my opinion, even the more the merrier. It doesn't, especially if that's, and we kind of know that that's the stance of United Kingdom. Together with the European Union, it's nothing to be, to make a problem of, definitely. Ambassador Stromquist, Sweden invests a lot of its, a significant amount of its GDP in research and development, and especially if we're talking about energy and the high expectation of energy also being one of the main topics in this year that we're in. What know-how can Sweden offer, especially concerning green energy and green agenda, the 2030 plans, the 2050 plans from the EU, but also accepted by many other countries? Is there a possibility for transferring the know-how of a country that's been working on this for decades now?
Yes, thank you. We do invest 3% of our GDP into research and development, which puts us among the top countries in the world in this regard. But I think it's important, and this is why I mention it, to say that more than 2% out of those 3 come from the private sector. So this also shows the importance of having a very strong private sector working together with the public sector and academia, as we have in Sweden. And I think this is really the recipe for success when it comes to innovation and research and development. And I say this for obvious reasons, since we all know that the private sector in Bosnia and Herzegovina is very small. So I think this is something that we should keep in mind, that they are highly important to drive this kind of progress. Regarding the green transition and Sweden, yes, we are in the forefront. We want to lead by example. We've set very ambitious goals for ourselves that we want to fulfill, and by that also inspire others. And many Swedish companies have solutions when it comes to environmental technology that, of course, we are happy to share with others. But we're also one of the main donors to many of the global funds when it comes to climate and energy. And this is, of course, our way to try to bring everyone together, because we only have one planet, as we know, so it doesn't matter if we're best in class in Sweden. We're a small country when we look at the world. So, of course, this is something where we have to work together. And here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we're the biggest donor in the field of environment and climate. And we have, through a project implemented by UNDP, really been working now for some years to put up good structures that's looking at energy efficiency, how to set up the structures to help Bosnia and Herzegovina to become more energy efficient, to help with the green transition. And we will actually, I'll make an advertisement now, on the 6th of January, we will have, February, of course, February, yes, exactly. 6th of February, thank you, Steliana. I see the good cooperation here between UNDP and Sweden.
She's following.
On the 6th of February, obviously, we will have a conference on this topic that will tell the story about what we have done so far. And the beauty in this is that we know that there's now coming a big energy package from the European Union. So this is the time to scale up the support with the EU money that's coming in, because the system is in place, and we do have a lot of good partners around the country, but we're hoping that more will engage and be part of this green transition that Sweden and the EU, together with our partners, will continue to support.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Toudic, in 2023, is there a chance for efficient multilateralism, and in the world that we're, it's a simple question, and in that context, if we speak about Bosnia and Herzegovina, can initiatives such as President Macron's European political communities, also going back to the EU candidacy question, could this be a working mechanism to help to be effective and to also at the same time reach multilateralism in the world, evade the Cold War, and etc.
Alors, vous avez combien d'heures?
5 minutes?
Ok.
Yeah? That okay?
Alors, non. Toute plaisanterie mise à part, effectivement, le multilatéralisme semble être devenu totalement obligatoire dans le contexte de la guerre en Ukraine, parce que la polarisation excessive, on voit évidemment ce que ça donne. Donc oui, il faut du multilatéralisme. C'est un des chevaux de bataille de la France, je dirais. Effectivement, vous avez signalé la communauté politique européenne. Il y a aussi le Forum de Paris sur la paix qui rassemble tous les ans depuis 2018 tous les intervenants de la gouvernance mondiale, donc les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, les entreprises, les ONG, les scientifiques, les donateurs, je peux citer à l'infini tous les gens qui sont rassemblés à cette occasion et qui à l'occasion de ce forum, se rencontrent et surtout prennent des décisions, mais qui sont suivies des faits. C'est-à-dire que les engagements financiers ne sont pas juste des belles paroles en l'air, mais sont tenus dans la majeure partie des cas. Alors, le multilatéralisme vu aussi à la française, c'est effectivement, comme vous l'avez signalé, cette CPE qui a suscité des réactions mitigées dans le meilleur des cas. C'est un peu de l'understatement. Mais encore une fois, il faut le rappeler, nous l'avons rappelé à plusieurs reprises, ma ministre Catherine Colonna l'a rappelé, le président de la République le rappelle régulièrement. La CPE n'est pas une antichambre de l'Union européenne pour la Bosnie-Herzégovine. C'est juste un nouveau modèle de multilatéralisme qui est accessible à tout le monde. Et donc, encore une fois, c'est pas du tout parce que on va comme ça, on noie le poisson et on évite que les pays des Balkans occidentaux entrent dans l'Union européenne. C'est pas du tout le propos. Le président Macron le rappelle systématiquement. Les pays des Balkans occidentaux et donc la Bosnie-Herzégovine ont toute leur place dans la famille européenne. Le statut de candidat en est la preuve. On a souvent accusé la France de bloquer ce statut de candidat. Bon, voilà. Apparemment, ce n'était pas le cas, puisque la Bosnie-Herzégovine l'a. Donc voilà, les soupçons s'arrêtent là. Et cette CPE est destinée à inaugurer un multilatéralisme plus ouvert à tout le monde, sans des ensembles structurés. C'est aussi ça l'idée. Alors, et vous avez parlé de la guerre en Ukraine. La France est parmi les pays qui aident le plus l'Ukraine en ce moment. Et donc là aussi, je crois, et le président Macron s'entretient régulièrement avec le président Zelensky. Tous nos élus, tous nos ministres se déplacent en Ukraine. Enfin, vraiment, c'est un soutien puissant. On va livrer prochainement des chars. 200 millions d'euros sont ouverts aux Ukrainiens pour acheter du matériel, des groupes énergétiques, enfin, toutes sortes de choses pour pallier les difficultés énergétiques en Ukraine. Et le tabou de la livraison d'avions a, semble-t-il, été levé ce week-end, si j'en crois les dernières informations. Donc, comme vous le voyez, la France essaye, dans tous les domaines, d'apporter sa pierre à un édifice un peu plus, comment je pourrais dire, un peu moins, un peu plus, un peu moins dangereux, un peu moins compliqué, on va le dire comme ça.
Thank you. Ambassador Fitschen, can I first ask you, because you were also listening to what we were hearing from Ambassador Toudic, perhaps the latest, the Leopard 2, the tanks that are now going to be dispatched to Ukraine from Germany. Maybe I will alleviate a little bit from what I had in mind, but maybe now that's the most actual question.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think that this is an important moment for Germany to allow the sending of the tanks now? And something that I'm wondering is, could that be perceived as a new kind of threat by Putin? Or could that be perceived as NATO entering the war in Ukraine?
Well, first of all, of course, public attention very much focuses on these heavy battle tanks because the discussion was very intense. But of course, Germany and other countries around the world, actually, European, Australia, other countries have always delivered military equipment to Ukraine. Mm-hmm. So if you look at this over the past 11 months, this is only the latest and maybe a very important point, but actually Germany and others have supplied massively military material to Ukraine for a long time. So Chancellor Scholz has said very clearly, this doesn't, the delivery of these 14 battle tanks and anything else in the future will not make us a party to the conflict. We are supporting Ukraine in defending itself and defending its sovereignty and its territorial integrity. So that's what we should be looking at. But please allow me to do two little comments on what has been raised earlier. One, multilateralism. You know, I'm a UN person, have been a UN person most of my life. So, of course, it's easy to say, well, the Security Council doesn't deliver, so the UN is in crisis. I don't think so. The past year has shown that multilateralism can be difficult at the UN, but muddling through as an art form was really very successful in New York and Geneva and everywhere else over the past 12 months. Decisions have been taken, programs are working properly. The U4 mandate was extended at the Security Council. So let's not presume, just because things are so difficult around Ukraine, that the rest of UN is somehow grinding to a stop. That's not the case. Secondly, you mentioned regional stability. I would like to remind our audience also of the Berlin process and the effort Germany.
Of the what? I didn't hear.
The Berlin process that was set up in 2014, which is an effort to improve cooperation among the Western Balkans 6 countries. That has been going on with the support, of course, of European friends. And one of the achievements was 3 agreements that were commonly negotiated and are now up to ratification. 2 on the recognition of qualifications and 1 about travel without passports. The idea behind this is improving and opening up the Western Balkans region for intra-regional contact, economic exchange, better trade relations, closer neighborly relations. So that, I think, also fits into the list of efforts that we undertake to stabilize the Western Balkans and to give people in all 6 countries, populations as well as politicians, an opportunity and a goal to work for. So I just wanted to make that point. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know how we are with time, but I think it's time to take a look at the poll we had, Anketa, which was happening, so the public opinion. I don't know if we could play it here on the television. Thank you. I don't know how much you all understand. So basically, it's which one of these ex-Yugoslav republics has the biggest chance to be in EU by 2030. And then we have, Montenegro, the highest. Okay, care to comment?
Alors, ayant été ambassadrice au Monténégro avant d'être ici, oui, peut-être quand j'y étais, non pas parce que j'y étais, mais à l'époque où j'y étais, peut-être c'était à 70%, compte tenu de l'énorme crise politique qui s'y passe actuellement, j'en suis moins sûre. Pour le reste, ma foi, je n'ai pas à juger des 2 autres puisque je ne connais pas. La Bosnie-Herzégovine, écoutez, elle vient juste d'avoir le statut de candidat, donc effectivement, elle est un peu en arrière des autres, mais il ne tient qu'à elle de faire des grands pas maintenant pour accélérer le processus. Après tout, la balle est dans le camp des autorités politiques bosniennes, et donc voilà. Rien n'est jamais gravé dans le marbre. Donc si le gouvernement, enfin les autorités politiques locales se remontent les manches, est-ce que je peux utiliser une expression un peu vulgaire, ces chiffres peuvent changer du tout au tout en peu de temps. Voilà, je ne peux pas en dire plus.
Okay, okay. Anybody else would like to comment on the prospects of the regional countries? Yes? Thank you.
No. Presidency,
Okay.
go ahead.
Thank you.
Always nice to have someone.
No, I mean, first, who were asked?
On the website we have we had people yes. So it's public opinion.
Public opinion, yes. Very specific part of the public opinion. No,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to comment on the obvious, the 7% for Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Yes, please.
It's clearly room for improvement, and I think this is the point. I mean, this is the time. This is the time to start working. Bosnia and Herzegovina was last year, when the European Commission assessed all the countries in the region, the last one in terms of progress. So I think this is really the time to turn this around, and now with the candidate status and all the support that is coming from the European Union and the member states, I really hope that this year is when we will shift this, and next year we might not be at the Montenegro's level, but hopefully somewhere closer.
10 times.
Yeah.
10 times difference. Ambassador Fitschen, did you want to say something as well?
Well, first of all, I would have asked the same question. Who did you ask? But, well, 2030, let's look at 2023. I think with the granting of the candidate status and also looking at elections, a vast majority of people and politicians in this country wants this country to become member of the European Union. I think that is the more important issue here. Of course, there's a long list of reforms that need to be undertaken, but it seems that politicians are well aware of this, society is aware of this. Of course, I wonder how people in this room feel about it, but I think that is the important signal now, that this country is ready and committed to do this. Mm-hmm. So that may change these figures quite quickly, because we now, with a fresh mandate for new politicians, we feel a kind of more sense of urgency here, more commitment and more enthusiasm. Of course, press is full of cynical commentaries, oh, we don't know what is going to change. In my view, the atmosphere is different this year. So there is a chance that these figures may be proven wrong fairly quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a question or a comment from the audience for our panelists, maybe? If that is so, I will invite everybody for a coffee break.
hang on.
Aha, može? Okay, yes. Možemo li dobiti mikrofon ovdje negdje na polovicu, molim vas tu. I'm very quick to decide that it's over, so I'm sorry. You will get- I need the coffee, but don't tell anyone.
Thank you. I'll keep this quite short. Said Ibrahimi from Alpha Energy. Just a quick observation. I think we acknowledge that how important it is to have renewable energies in transitioning towards a sustainable future, and also helping with energy security, as the panel have noted to. So my question is, how can we sort of counter the threat or mitigate the risks associated to access to critical materials that could be in the hand of a few countries or a handful of regions around the world in transitioning towards this sustainable future, and also not falling into the same problem, being dependent in the regions of fossil fuel again?
Chair, who would you like to kick off with that?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. I'm perfectly happy.
You
on.
can
I'll-
all go. You can all go.
Very good. Shall I? As a British-US company, I'll go first. You see, there we are. So Alpha Energy, and actually, just to say that to endorse everything that several other panelists said about renewable energy, and the fact that we've got a short-term crisis at the moment with the war in Ukraine, and the early proof that you cannot depend on a single source, particularly if it happens to be Russia, actually just underlines the importance of getting the energy transition here in the Western Balkans and here in Bosnia and Herzegovina sooner rather than later. Don't hang around. This is a real opportunity to crack on. And actually, though quite rightly you didn't ask me what I thought about that because we've left the European Union, but actually what I will say on that is that there's 14 key priorities, which everyone mentioned. And actually, quite a lot of them are quite easy. So there could be a huge step forward. And as the United Kingdom, I care just as much about that, because that's actually about Bosnia and Herzegovina's progress, which will also make a easier, better functioning economy. But as to the question that you asked about critical materials and all the rest of it, I mean, that's a global debate. It's a global debate, and the Presidency of the European Union has just recently announced amazing new prospects for mines up in the far north of Sweden, I think, for that. So, that's, there are controversial sort of looking at mines in Serbia with the potential for lithium. But I mean, I think the broader point is that there are, and we have our very own sort of alpha and Adriatic metals here, looking at silver, which is going to be absolutely critical in sort of, recharging electric vehicles and all the rest of it. So there's actually quite a lot of nearshoring that can be done. There's an awful lot of opportunity in and near Europe, including in the Western Balkans. So actually, I think that the threat that you highlight is also an opportunity, because it's actually the opportunity for us to all crack on, getting the sort of economic investment environments in place so that the international comes in soon, so that suddenly actually, I mean, Bosnia and Herzegovina still, though with the wrong kind of energy, is the only energy exporter in the region. If those thermal power plants were converted to biomass and hydro and wind energy, suddenly there would be a huge amount of independence and economic independence and ability to support the wider region in creating that dependency. We will need those rare metals and other materials, but there's ways to take it forward. But actually, if we work collectively, I really think we can address that. So it's good to have the warning, but actually let's seize the opportunity.
Thank you. Anybody else want to say something? No?
Well,
I think we're, yeah?
Yep. I think it was really the COVID crisis that hit home the question of dependencies. I think for too long, globalization has concentrated on going for the cheapest supplier only. But COVID told us that not even simple things as masks and vaccines and all of that are available in a way that we became used to. namely on demand, cheaply, anytime, at any price, at any time of the day. That has changed. So this type of thinking needs to be reversed. Whatever we need, and it's just rare metals is just one field, lots of other dependencies. But we have to consider how reliable and how secure and how good is the supply in terms of crisis if something happens. So that part of the calculation of enterprises and traders needs to be improved. It's not just the cheapest and the easiest thing that we should buy, but the safest and the more secure that works even if my business is under pressure from other situations. Thank you.
Yes?
Sorry to destroy
No,
your
it's okay. I
time,
don't know how we are with
But just to add briefly, and that's why one of the 4 priorities of the Swedish EU presidency is competitiveness, to make sure that we invest enough in the EU to see that we're competitive with the rest of the world and that we're not dependent on others. And of course we do this, everything that we do, we want to do in close cooperation with our partners, UK, US, other like-minded countries, and of course countries in the Western Balkans who want to be working with us. So I think this is exactly the point. All these different crises have shown that how vulnerable we are if we don't become a little bit more conscious about how we do things.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you to the audience. Thank you for being here, and please enjoy the coffee break that is ahead of us for 30 minutes. Thank our panelists. We'll meet here in 30 minutes. There will be coffee outside of the hall here. All good?